So, rendering. So I'm going quickly to subdivide the eyes right here, just to have like a nice and clean surface. Okay. So generally what I do, I will create a few base render passes that I'm going to use later to composite my materials in the brush, in Photoshop, sorry. I just try to make sure that I haven't forgot some key elements. Maybe I could fix quickly the lips here of the toad. Yeah, just this part here because it looks super weird. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select only this here. And while backing up before, I'm going to do a quick panel loop with not going to happen. Neither I want a double-sided panel loop. We just try to create a little piece of geometry on the inside. In the other direction, let's see what it does. Lower. Okay. I'm going to delete lower. Ah yeah. Okay, so let's bake all my layers. Now delete my lower geometry, select only this, and try this panel loop feature. No, I don't want any polishing, and I want something way thicker. A bit more thicker. Panel loop, not that much. Okay. Now I want to select only this. Okay. Maybe make a polygroup for this one, so I can only get selected. I want to remove this part here. Okay, so I have to make sure that I'm not creating any seam. And this is why do I have a seam? Okay, let's see. So I'm going to do something simple. I'm going to tell hidden, duplicate system. And okay, this one have the history. This one I'm going to select only this geometry, and I'm going to delete everything else. Okay, so now I have a bit of geometry in here. I'll be able to use. just trying to create an organic feel on the inner part of this it doesn't have to be perfect because it's mostly going to be invisible. Okay, let's see what it does. Key shot. Okay, it looks better. So, I'm going to do my base render passes first of all. So, just want to have one simple materials. I don't know. Maybe my very base pass will be with this water because it changed the values too much with the bright water. So let's do this. So I'm going to render this at 8K. And for this base pass, I also want to create some basic render passes. So I want my depth pass, my geometric normal pass, and I'll show you what it is. But basically, it's a map that gives an indication on the orientation of the geometry in space. So it's useful to select, for example, just the bottom planes or the camera facing planes and so on, and the clone pass, which is an ID pass. But for the clone pass to work, I have all of my subtools here, so I want to select everything and to unlink materials just for this pass. So now, because I have like a new material for each subtools, it's going to create a nice ID pass for me, and this ID pass is going to be, I'll show you, like, if you are used to 3D, you know what an ID pass is. But basically, it's a flat color for each different material I have. So for each different subtools, I'm going to have a nice flat color that I'll be using to quickly select part of my image. So I'm going to render this at 128 samples. And I have this Q feature in Photoshop, and I'm also going to render this one that I queued earlier. These are just work in progresses of the image. So I'm going to queue this with Ctrl U. So now I have this job which is queued. So I can undo my unlink materials to get back to only one simple materials again. And now I'm going to render some indication about the reflectivity of the material, so I'm going to use a metal. Change the lighting to basic, because with the material I don't need to have a full simulation. So right now, most of the time when this happens, this is synonymous of keyshot crashing. Let's see. No, fine. So I want to tweak things just a little bit, because if I don't add a bit of roughness, usually the result is very noisy. So I'm trying to clean a bit of the information by removing some of the ray bouncing, because with rebounds the reflective material starts to reflect itself. So I want to simplify this. Shadow quality, global illumination. Let's have full black. So I'm going to do maybe 2 of these passes. First of all, I want to remove this Carreri burn water in here, because it's going to consume too much resources. I don't need this right now. Okay, so I'm going to Q1 like that. Option 8K. I want to remove my render passes. I already have them. I don't need more of them right now. So Control U to Q this. And now I'm going to do another one, maybe at a higher sampling level. Dealing with bugs and crashes, it's really a complete part of the job, which is frustrating, definitely. Because sometimes it brings too much noise, so I'm not sure if it's going to be helpful or not. It really depends on the direction of the sun and the scene. So I'm going to cue this one. And what else? Now I want a couple maps. I have a depth map. Now what I want is a height map, because a height map is going to be quite useful to be able to select and create interesting texture gradients on the grass. So let's add color gradient in here. Going to move into performance mode. free camera. And I want to change the orientation of my gradient. No. So let's move it with the mapping tool. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and I don't need to be exact because I'm going to render this at 32 bits to make sure I have the enough data at each level of depth. For example, here there is a less pronounced gradient. I don't think I will need it on the fish, but anyway, let's render this now. So I have to get back to basic mode because it won't work. I need only, I think, 8 samples. It's totally fine. Let's add 16 just for the anti-aliasing. And I want to pick a TIFF 32 bits. So this way I'll get 32 bits level of information to make sure I can get a nice gradient without any bending at different level of depth. So Ctrl U to add that to the queue, moving back to GPG. And now I'm going to plan some textures. Quick texture mappings. So I have a couple textures I really like that I rendered in various fractal softwares. And I use them quite often because I really like the color palette. I don't know, just the texture, because they are not really realistic, so I like the fact that it brings a more illustrative, more stylized touch. Change the scale to something more interesting. So I'm using this box mapping, which allows me to quickly have a texture that is projected in an interesting way. And what I'm doing is that I'm creating texture passes for which I have no idea if I'm going to use them or not. I can't tell for sure. But I like to have them, and just here, so when I'm starting to do the compositing in Photoshop, it creates options to experiment with various color schemes and have this potential for happy accidents. So this is something I really like when I'm painting, or the thing I do is trying to not to be completely in control about what I'm doing. So I can use my artistic eye to be surprised and spot interesting events and decide on the go if this represents a potential for the image or not. For some reason, Keyshot is messing with me. I want to bring some of these greens here on the grass. So I'm just trying to get the proper position. Yeah, this one could be interesting on the left side. So Control U for this one. Another one which can be interesting. Yeah, this one could be cool. I'm going to render a couple projection for this one because I feel it could be interesting to bring some coloring accidents. And some of the time I'm not even using this, but it helped me to figure out different color fill in Photoshop, and sometimes just help me to get an idea about the colors I want to experiment with. Sometimes the idea I have about the way I'm approaching things, it's more like I'm trying to art direct happy accidents rather than trying to be totally completely in control. And I'm looking for unexpected things and trying to make free association between a texture and a feeling, and I mean right now it's black, yellow, red, but I can do pretty much anything I want with this texture. Later in Photoshop I can change the colors, can change the grayscale, invert the values if I want, completely alter them. So yeah, it's just having pixels ready to be used and create potential for accidents. For you, let's try another one. This one is interesting too. Same here, I'm looking at the color, but also at the value patterns, at the structure of the pattern. Ah, shit. Fluorescent. Totally destroyed my canvas ratio, so I want to get back to this one. Okay. Let's get back to flat and have the same setting, 8K, option, 4 samples, and lighting basic. Okay, so color. Onto box map. And sometimes this is interesting what happens when you stay in matcap mode and project a texture. Sometimes it does really amazing things. So I'm going to use this at my advantage, but it also crashes quite often, so I want to be careful with this, or not. It's not a big problem if it crashes. Yeah, it could be interesting, this directionality underneath the tone. Could be something interesting, so I'm going to do another one. Let's get into box map mode. Yeah, I don't know. There is a feel I like, but not that much. Let's try spherical, cylindrical, maybe spherical. This could be interesting here and here. To render this one. Yeah, I'm interested right now in this directionality of the texture for this part of the image. And now I'm looking here. I think I really like this texture right now. The different shapes it brings. Control U. I want to try to get that feeling maybe at some other places. I really like the patterning here. Okay, let's try a completely different one. I might once again, I might not using any of these textures at all, but it's really interesting for me to try to figure what kind of texture language I want to bring, because it helped me to get away from the reference. Otherwise, I tend to stick too much to the reference. So. And once I'm going to be painting, I'll probably go back and forth between Keyshot and Photoshop and even ZBrush to on the go do a couple modifications, sculpt things, just because I think it could be interesting in the scene, and it's going to be interactive. Just looking, I have maybe another interesting one. For you, I'm going to move the seam downward to have this interesting texture on the grass blades. I think this one is interesting for the grass. Okay. This is probably not bad for a beginning. Let's see if I can find a couple different textures. I don't know. I'm looking at my ref folder right now. I'm trying to just see if I can get surprised by something. Wootha, Wood movies. No, I don't think I'm finding something interesting. Well, it's not bad for a beginning, so I'm going to launch all these renders. Let's see what I have. Okay, I have this queue. So these ones are going to take a little while to render. But after the texture projection in box mapping, it's extremely fast. Even at 8K, it's just less than 1 minute per texture, so it's quite fast. And yeah, when I'm going to composite this in Photoshop, I'll do some specific renders for some part of the image.